We've got two trades to break down in the NBA. Starting off with the bigger one, the three-team trade between the Kings, Cavs, and Bulls. The Cavs sending out DeAndre Hunter to the Kings, receiving in return Dennis Schroder and Keon Ellis. They also receive Emmanuel Miller from the Bulls, as the Bulls needed to send something out in order to make this trade legal. Cavs waive Luke Travers, who was on a two-way to make room for Miller. The Bulls receiving Dario Saric from the Kings. They also waive Javon Carter to make room for Saric. They pick up 2 second-round picks from the Cavs in order to enable them to take on the salary dump of Saric. And the Kings, they receive DeAndre Hunter, who projects to be their starting small forward moving forward. We'll get to the Kings in just a second. Let's first analyze this from the perspective of the Cavaliers. They pick up Dennis Schroder, who had just signed a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Sacramento Kings. He will now play for his 11th NBA team, which is a record for an international player. He struggled in Sacramento after signing that contract. He lost his starting job to Westbrook after the first 3 weeks of the year. His numbers for the season are nearly identical to what they were last year, shooting 41% from the field, 34% from three, overall 53% true shooting, has a 29% assist rate as well. He should slide into the backup point guard role this season and beyond for the Cavs. They've really needed an insurance option for Darius Garland, who has been in and out of the lineup this year due to his nagging toe issue. They let Ty Jerome go in free agency, and then the Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball trade that they used to bring in Lonzo to kind of replace Lonzo Ball has more or less fallen flat on its face. Lonzo has been very ineffective, and he's not even in the rotation right now. He's likely the next player that the Cavs will look to salary dump at the deadline as they try to get under the second apron. Also looking to open up a roster spot to convert Naquan Tomlin as well. They do add, because this is a 2-for-1 for them, they actually filled a roster spot, so now they would need to open one up for Tomlin. So certainly Lonzo is at the top of the list of candidates they will be looking to move. Craig Porter Jr., he's been an effective bench player for them. It's better than Lonzo, but at the end of the day, he profiles more as like a third string rather than a playoff player, just overall due to his he shoots like 40% from three, but he does it on extremely low volume, only like one attempt per 36 minutes. So that's something that would get exposed in the playoffs. Kind of like a younger version of like TJ McConnell, still a little polish that needs to be added to his game. Nowhere near the playmaker that TJ McConnell is. So Schroder is somebody who's going to step in and immediately become the Cavaliers' sixth man. And that's something that they definitely need because they have been, they've essentially been playing Donovan Mitchell at point guard in Garland's absence, and their entire team has kind of been stretched a little thin. Keon Ellis, he's going to be a nice pickup for a playoff team in the Cavaliers. The backcourt is still pretty crowded in Cleveland as it was in Sacramento. You'll notice he is the third string shooting guard here as well. I think this may be an indicator that they are eventually going to move on from Darius Garland, as he just hasn't really stayed healthy, and there have always been questions about how the small backcourt is really going to work out between Garland and Mitchell. It would not surprise me if Mitchell just moved over to the point guard position full time if they move Garland, and then they have enough requisite depth that they don't necessarily even need to bring in another two guard. They also have Max Strus, who's essentially a two guard, was last year's small forward starter. But Ellis, he is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, so they do have his bird rights. Kings were looking for a first-round pick, ultimately not getting it. They ended up just taking DeAndre Hunter and using Ellis as like the bait to get off of the Schroder contract. Ellis, for what it's worth, a little duplicative of what Tyrese Proctor brings. Proctor now essentially like the eighth guard in the rotation, seventh or eighth guard, depending on how you feel about Lonzo Ball. So there may be another move coming here as well. He only makes $2 million next year, but if they do plan on re-signing Ellis and they're going to have Merrill and Mitchell, there are only so many rotation spots, so it's possible that he could get moved to another team where he'd play a bigger role. And then the first thing I'm actually going to do before we move on is just how these guys fit in. Like Keon Ellis could be anywhere from like the seventh man to like the ninth man in the rotation. I do have a intangibles debuff applied to him because he wasn't in the Sacramento Kings rotation. This is something that I do typically to control the overall ratings, to make sure that the teams have depth charts accurate to real life. So I'm going to knock him up to a 70 intangibles, which is more in line with like a role player on the team. And that's going to give him a +3 overall. I'm going to sort the depth chart, and you can see, yeah, seventh man here. They actually have Schroder starting because Garland is currently sidelined. I suppose that is something that could happen. I think that they probably would, at least in the outset, until he gets comfortable with the team, probably start Mitchell and Merrill in the backcourt, and then have Schroder and Ellis be the primary backups. But I do like, they've already been starting Merrill at small forward a lot, even when the Garland was healthy. They do like these three guard alignments, so it is possible that like come playoff time, Keon Ellis could be the starting small forward, or just certainly be playing a lot in these three guard alignments next to Donovan Mitchell. They did a lot with Ty Jerome as well. He is a better defensive player than Sam Merrill, not the shooter for that he is, of course, but obviously a far superior defensive player. And so I do like this pickup for the Cavs. It does get them cheaper. They saved $50 million in luxury tax by moving off of Hunter. Aside from the owner's money, though, who cares about that? They get closer to getting under the second apron, which there are a ton of team building restrictions that come with being in the second apron. Most notably, they cannot aggregate players in trades. So they had to send out DeAndre Hunter and break him up into smaller players, and they're also not allowed to take on salaries, so they had to send him out for cheaper players while still making the trade legal. So it does make it harder for a team to maneuver, along with potentially getting their draft picks frozen, meaning that they cannot be traded in subsequent deals, which then could be used to improve the team. So if they're, frozen draft picks are a big problem for a team keeping itself together, because if you want to be a contender, you are going to have to trade your picks in order to bring in players to continue stocking your coffers with vets and stuff. So the Cavs have taken the first step towards getting under the apron. Getting off Alonzo Ball would be the next step, and we'll see if they move off of any of these other guys. They do really need help in the front court. With now that Hunter is gone, Dean Wade is going to be relied on even more at small forward, as well as Naquan Tomlin's probably going to play a little bit there as well. Max Strus still does not have a timetable to return. Probably it's looking like he is not going to suit up at all this season, as he was originally expected to be back in January. Jalen Tyson, he's really been the guy that made DeAndre Hunter expendable. He was last season's starter. Hunter was, and then he was just made a complete afterthought kind of this year. He struggled a lot with the shot, but we'll get to the Hunter and the Kings in just a second. But Jalen Tyson, he's been much improved in his second season and has really established himself as what should be the starting small forward moving forward and into the future. Only 22 years old for him. So that was a big reason why the Cavs felt comfortable moving off of Hunter. Let's now check this out for the Kings, who they cleared out their backcourt glut somewhat. They bring in Hunter, who he's in the mold of Harrison Barnes, who the Kings never should have traded for DeMar DeRozan. As DeRozan, there's just too many mouths to feed. Doesn't really fit with Domantas Sabonis either. They've really lacked. They've really missed his 3-point shooting. Barnes's Hunter, for what it's worth, 2 years, 48 million is what he's owed this year and next year. He's going to make 25 million next year. After that, they could probably get him on an extension around that number. The key note here is he's only 27 years old, so he is somebody that they can actually pair next to Keegan Murray moving forward. And so Hunter only shooting 31% from three this year. That's coming after, though, his career high 41% last year, and he's 37% for his career. So this should be able to bounce back. If as long as he is shooting like 37%, he is a pretty reasonable, he's an average starter, and that's really what the Kings need, is just somebody who is going to be able to play for them for the next 5 years and just be respectable. They ended the Keon Ellis saga. He was in and out of the rotation for much of his tenure in Sacramento. Very polarizing player for them, as he's not without his flaws, but he should be he's a low-level Alex Caruso type of player, not quite as nowhere near as good defensively, but still like high impact, a little too small to really guard in the front court, not enough of a playmaker to guard to play the one, for example, but he is a pretty good point of attack defender and gets a lot of steals, but they just had so many guards in the backcourt. They weren't really able to make room for him. Doing a 3-for-1 trade, also sending out Dario Saric, means that they do open up a roster spot as well. So Dylan Cardwell is going to occupy that. The Kings are going to be allowed to carry a 13-man roster for the next 14 or 13 days or so. And then after that, they have to get back up to the roster minimum. So I imagine that Cardwell will be converted and or sign a multi-year deal at that time. So they don't need to sign anybody from the free agent pool. They are just going to convert one of their guys. Of course, they could also make another trade at the deadline. For example, if Zach LaVine gets traded, that's probably going to be a 2-for-1 trade with 2 players joining the Kings in that instance, most likely, maybe even 3, just because Zach LaVine makes so much money, so that the salary matching, it's difficult to trade a guy like him. DeMar DeRozan, Sabonis, they have so many guys who are on the block. Malik Monk, another one. Devin Carter, they don't really have much of an affinity for, but maybe that changes now that Schroder is out of the picture. Devin Eubanks as well is basically out of the rotation entirely with the emergence of Cardwell and Maxime Reynaud, as well as them signing Precious Achiuwa. So let's actually make a couple changes just to reflect what's going to go on in Sacramento moving forward. I did have the intangibles debuff applied to Hunter because he was coming off the bench and only playing 20 or so minutes a game for the Cavs, but because I anticipate he will start in Sacramento, we are going to restore his starter status to him, so that alone jumps him 3 points overall. And then I also got to remove force non-starter, I suppose, as that would definitely help get him to start, right? Now DeMar DeRozan, oh geez, I have a bunch of stuff that needs to get fixed. So positionally, the way for this to now make sense on the depth chart, DeRozan has been playing a lot at the 2 of late. I am actually going to change his position from small forward shooting guard to shooting guard small forward. I think that he's just too small in general to really be a true 3 moving forward now. And then Zach LaVine actually came off the bench in not this past game, but the previous one behind DeRozan. So I do think that maybe he makes a little bit more as a 6th man if they should start. I think long term they should be starting Hunter over the double guard lineup. And obviously this leaves us with Malik Monk as the 3rd shooting guard, except Malik Monk last year after the Fox trade was the starting point guard for a little bit. So we are, now that Schroder is gone, and he had re-entered the rotation after Schroder got suspended, and yeah, I think it just makes sense to shift Monk now over to the 1. So this is actually a little bit more balanced than it was before. Nick Clifford, I think, is more of a 2 than a 3, but it could go either way. He is a great rebounder, which is why I lean towards him being at the 3. But at least for the theory of the Sacramento Kings right now, I imagine that they are going to move off of one of DeRozan, Levine, or Monk at the deadline. Although if they can't, this is essentially how the lineup for the team would break down. Let's just adjust. All right, I still have to. I guess let's remove force non-starter from Monk while Westbrook is hurt. Westbrook's only day to day, but otherwise he would normally be the starter. Yeah, this isn't. I mean, it's still pretty bad, but yeah, Kings are of course pretty bad. But slightly less bad than they were before, I think. And they get off of the Schroder contract, which ended up being they shot themselves in the foot with that one. Didn't need to give him 3 years, I don't think, especially since they just signed Westbrook to a veteran's minimum contract, and he's largely been better than Schroder the entire year. Hopping over to Chicago, just to briefly touch on the trade for them. They got Dario Saric's $5.4 million expiring contract and 2 second-round picks in for taking that on to their books. The Bulls, they waived Javon Carter in order to make room for Saric on the roster, so they do eat $6.8 million in dead salary as a result. Carter's actually the more interesting talking point for the context of the Bulls part of this trade, because he signed a 3-year deal with Chicago, but then barely played after the first year. But he typically would play well in spot starts. He should still be able to contribute to an NBA team. I would argue he's probably the top free agent on the market right now. Obviously, that'll change after the deadline and buyout season and all that. But there are some contenders where he makes sense. The Celtics, Clippers, Nuggets, Suns, they all make some sense. I believe he's already played for the Suns in his career. The Nuggets have been starting Jalen Pickett at the 2 a lot of these games, so they could definitely use one more guard as well with some playoff experience. I believe he's also played for the Thunder as well. He would make sense there. He's definitely an OKC level of player, but I don't expect that they will be able to open up a roster spot for him. And he probably wouldn't play over A.J. Mitchell or any of the other guys that they already have. But, if they were able to move off of Usman Deng and they had nobody else that they wanted to sign, they could bring him in for sure. Certainly, maybe, if Nikola Topic is expected to miss, the rest of the year, or they're able to move him into a team that could actually use him, that might aid that. But in terms of the Saric, he might actually play for the Bulls because, of course, they play Nikola Vucevic. He played 37 minutes in the last game. They have their front court is banged up right now, and they don't really have much else in the way of size. And Vucevic already a kind of a similar player to Saric. They're both not great defenders, both solid passers, both solid 3-point shooters. So how much worse than Patrick Williams can he really be, right? Now, the question is Saric actually still an NBA player? Because he's barely played since falling out of Denver's rotation back in November 2024. He's only played 16 games last season, and then only 5 this year for a hapless Sacramento team. And then of those 16 last year, only 6 of them came after he scrubbed out in November. So he's only played 11 NBA games in the last year. And for this year, he played the first 3 games of the season and then twice on December 18th and 20th. So he already has not played in 6 weeks. So we'll see if he has anything left or if the Bulls are, if he's really completely dead salary. If that's the case, then the Bulls probably should just waive him and open up a roster spot for somebody who is going to play down the stretch. But I think he's got it's possible that he could. He'll have 2 months essentially to resurrect his NBA career, because obviously nobody is going to sign him unless he shows something over these next 2 months with the Bulls. So that's pretty much that trade from all 3 angles. And then the Atlanta Hawks, in the other trade that was made today, they sent out Krecji for Duop Reith to the Portland Trail Blazers. Oops, I didn't actually make the trade, so let's do that now. I'm gonna have to do this live. So you can't trade injured players, or can you? Oh God. Let's see. Why would it do it? Oh wow, it works this year. Great. Okay. Great. Fuck. Um, I'm glad we troubleshot that. That worked out. All right. So the Hawks, they pick up Duop Reith. They just didn't need Vit Krejci after the Corey Kispert trade, and then after Zachary Risache came back, he was essentially out of the rotation entirely. So they move him to Portland for 2 second-round picks plus Duop Reith. Reith out for the season, is probably going to get waived. Either him or Nafali Dante should get waived just to open up roster spot for them. So the Blazers, they trade 2 second-rounders to take on Krejci, who should immediately slot into their rotation, be like their 8th, 9th man or so. Krejci, he gives the Blazers a bench shooter. They are dead last in three-point percentage this year, 33.6 from the three-point range. He's shooting, Krejci, he's shooting 42% this year, and he's 41% for his career. So he immediately becomes like the best shooter on the team, certainly. So he should be a major upgrade from like the Ryan Repair minutes that he was getting. And he is also on a very team-friendly contract with this, which I've discussed a lot this year for the Hawks. So he is somebody, he's essentially making the NBA minimum for like the next 2 years after this one, and there are like partial guarantees and stuff on it. So yeah, extremely team friendly. He should stick in Portland for the next couple of years, and because he makes such little money, that's also a lot of value for them because they are their team is so expensive, and then next year they have a lot of the extensions that they gave to Shaedon Sharpe and Toumani Camara. Those will kick in. Jeremy Grant still makes a ton of money. Drew Holiday makes a lot of money. So yeah, this is still a pretty pricey team. So Krejci will help in that regard. And yeah, it gives them they do need to open up a roster spot in order to convert CD Sissoko and Caleb Love. So somebody will surely be on the move. Blake Wesley is an option to get traded. They moved off of Reith already. Yeah, it's probably just going to be Blake Wesley that they dump somewhere, but they do need to dump another guy. So it could be Repair. It could actually be Matisse Thybulle, just moving him to like a contender or something like that. But yeah, solid overall ad with the Vit Krejci move. So I like what those teams have done. We'll be breaking down any further trades that happen in the NBA. All-Star reserves were just announced. I think for the most part they're fine, with the exception of LeBron James made it over Kawhi Leonard, which tinfoil hat time. Maybe the game is in LA in the Clippers dome. I'm not sure why Kawhi didn't get more votes than LeBron, given that he's actually played 4 more games this year than LeBron has, and he's had decidedly a much better year. Obviously, LeBron is LeBron, but Kawhi's Kawhi too. It makes me think maybe the league had kind of directed coaches to not vote for Kawhi. Maybe something's going to happen with the aspiration stuff that they just want to have not have to discuss any of that at All-Star break, not have any of the Clippers players there. So that's definitely possible, because I don't think LeBron was really All-Star caliber. There are even other players I would have taken over him in general. Like Alperen Şengün has played 10 more games than LeBron has, and there's not too much of a difference between their cases as well. Rockets and Lakers are pretty similar in the standings as well. So I mean, yeah, I like LeBron, but this is kind of what's the word, like uh, when somebody gets it, like a lifetime achievement selection, essentially. It's not quite there because he's still playing at a high level, but I mean, there's so much competition in the West. Like in the Eastern Conference, yeah, he's an all-star. Pascal Siakam was a fucking all-star this year in the Eastern Conference, and his team was won 13 games. There's just no, like Jalen Johnson is an all-star lock in the Eastern Conference, and he would not sniff the all-star team in the West by comparison, as like a good example of that. So yeah, a little bit of controversy there. I think that's all I'm going to really talk about it. I don't think I'm going to break down too much of it on the Real 2K or on the NBA 2K reading recap video that's going to come later. We'll be break down the next 10 games that's played today. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little trade analysis video. And yeah, we are going to be breaking down any other further trades that occur. I will see you guys when that happens. Peace out.